Welcome to the Best by the Worst. The best movies of all time, reviewed by the worst possible critics. If you don't believe us, keep listening to find out.
Oh, Barrett. Here we are again.
Welcome back to the Barrett Podcast, featuring Alex.
I'm pretty sure I made that joke last time, so I'll give you that one. What are we drinking this week, boy?
We are drinking a Rocky Ridge collab that I can't see who they collaborated with because I'm pouring the can.
Ah, yes.
Do you know? It's a red ale.
I love a red ale. I absolutely adore red ale. That's a good question. Actually, no, this is just Rocky Ridge.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, no collab.
Yeah. Was a part of the 7 Deadly Tins
Yeah.
range? Yeah. So it is a Lust Red IPA, 7.5%. Pretty cool can art as well.
Oh, that smell. You bastard.
Oh.
Yeah, they could be our official sponsor.
We could dream of having Rocky Ridge.
Hey, we knew the guy.
We met Hamish.
Yeah, we met him before he was
famous.
Before he blew up.
He was just in Main Liquor trying to peddle his beer.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a couple of good chats with him.
Because they have blown up.
They have. Yeah, we should have paid more attention to him.
He invited us to his farm.
Yeah, we didn't take him up on it.
No, I emailed him.
We tried, but we just didn't line it up properly. But Hamish, if you're listening, we are listening to offers.
Entertaining
and
offers.
if you remember us, please give us free beer.
Yeah, when would that have been? Maybe 2015?
Yeah, almost 10 years ago, I'd say.
Yeah.
Hot minute ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Barrett, we did another movie.
We did another movie. Another week, another movie.
But worth highlighting. I don't know if we really talked about it last episode, but we've entered 1940. We finished the 30s.
I don't remember a lot from the last episode.
Yeah. Well, we did. We finished the 30s, if I didn't mention it. So we've now entered a new decade, and we're going to release a bit of a summary of what our scores were for the 30s. And we'll include the couple from the 20s because it was late, right? There's only a few in there to try and just give everyone an idea of where we're at.
Yeah. I've put you in charge of going back and getting all the scores because we don't remember any of them.
So by the time we get to the 60s, I should have done it.
Oh, no. So you've heard it here first. If the picture doesn't come out with all of the scores on it, it's because Alex didn't do the research.
Very possible. Delish.
All right. I'm going to kick us off with the movie.
Get on it.
All right. So 1940, Best Picture, Rebecca. I wasn't overly excited about this one, but...
Nor was I. It kind of looked a little boring. The cover art even looked boring. It just looked boring. I thought, here we go. And this is going to be another dull fest.
Did it start off boring. So the movie had a budget of $1.29 million or $29 million in today's money.
Yeah.
Everyone is dead.
Damn. Yeah, I can't even think of any small children that were in there that might have given us a chance.
No. 1940 though, so...
There was a dog, and dogs don't die, so the dog's still alive.
Okay. Story checks out. I've written a loose plot for
Do
you.
it.
Man meets woman.
Mm-hmm.
Woman and man get married.
Mm-hmm.
Man was married before. This causes issues. Plot twist. End.
Nice. Very much so. I think it's very important to say plot twist and not to elaborate until we get there.
Oh, I didn't want to.
Because this movie took some twists and turns, none of which I was expecting, and completely changed the experience for me.
Yes.
Wild.
Yeah.
I want to get into it, but before we do that, let's get through our facts.
I reckon my rating doubled by the end of the movie.
I think so too. Yeah. I think mine probably did too.
All right.
Yeah. Wild. Okay. All right, I want to talk about that, but we got to go through the motions. So,
set the scene.
1940. Look, just like it was last episode, I'm pretty sure for the next probably 5 episodes, there's just a lot of World War II stuff, but I got to mention it. So, Nazi invades Denmark and Norway. Denmark surrenders after 6 hours.
I shouldn't laugh.
That was pretty impressive. A 6-hour battle and they were kaput.
Yeah. Bless Denmark.
Italy annexes Albania and Germany takes Belgium. So it's really kicking off. So Italy and Germany have made an agreement, to be those evil powers. Anyway, establishment of Auschwitz. That happens.
Right.
Yep, look, it's pretty sad facts, but we have to talk facts because that's 1940. Not a lot of fun happened then. There was one little bit of fun.
Okay.
Pinocchio premieres.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Disney's second ever full feature film.
It baffles me every time someone mentions something happening during the war.
Yeah.
Like I heard today, someone, I don't know, it was their birth year, 1940. And
Yeah.
I was like, so there's a war going on.
Yeah.
And someone had a baby. Or,
Yeah.
you know, Disney's pumping out Pinocchio. They made it, you know, they still had the Academy Award for Best Picture.
yeah.
They still made movies.
I don't know all the facts, but also Disney at this time is working for the FBI in some capacity. I think there was another movie on it because he's like trying to scope out Nazis or whatever inside of Hollywood, or I don't know. He's doing some shonky work for the government, but he made Pinocchio and that got released. So
Yeah.
bit of a little bright spot.
Good movie.
And then we'll get right back into the sadness again.
Yep.
Germany also takes France. And that's when you see those old photos when he's like looking at the Eiffel Tower and he goes to see Napoleon's tomb and that sort of thing. Yeah, he's just really cleaning up half of Europe at this stage.
Right.
Sad.
Yep.
Dunkirk happens. You remember that movie, Dunkirk?
No.
You didn't watch Dunkirk?
Should I have watched Dunkirk? Every week I disappoint you.
It's a pretty new movie. I really thought you would have watched that one. It's a war movie.
Nope.
Okay, like when, you know, the British powers and all that kind of went in to support France and try to fend off Hitler as he was just steamrolling country after country. This is obviously early in the war. They were getting pumped and they retreated and fled to Dunkirk to get out across the channel back into England.
Yeah.
And there was this massive rescue operation to get all the troops. It was like 317 or 320,000 troops. So they got off the beach of Dunkirk across while, you know, the Germans were advancing to go and clean them up. I think they kind of like let them go as well in part, but it was an intense situation and they managed to get 300,000 of them back across the channel.
Yeah. How's Russia and Germany at this point? Are they still playing nice?
Yeah, so they're still playing nice. So Germany's cleaning up all these countries and Russia is also taking other countries too. I think he takes Finland, Romania, a few others, right? So, you know, they're doing their own thing. They're seizing the opportunity to take what they want.
Yeah.
Germany is just wiping out countries.
Yep.
Not a great time to be in Europe. Churchill becomes Prime Minister as well.
Ooh.
So it's really getting in there.
Yep.
Cool. And obviously everyone's fighting. So, yeah, sad time to be alive. Anyway, Australian fact, though, completely unrelated to World War II.
Okay.
Thank goodness. Double-decker buses replaced the last cable trams in Melbourne.
Wait, but the trams are back?
Yep. I didn't understand that part either, but that's the fact. But are they on cables? I think they're just on the rail, right?
Don't know.
Well, look, I didn't fact check my facts. They're just facts.
I've ridden the trams of Melbourne, and even I swear they're on the overhead power lines.
Well, at the very least, they stopped and double-decker buses were there, and something then changed later.
Trams are back.
We'll get to that in future historical event fact reviews on my separate podcast, History with Alex.
Tram facts.
Tram facts. Movie time.
Movie time.
One of Alfred Hitchcock's masterpieces.
Yes. We watched this movie, 3 days ago?
Yeah, a few days ago. It's one of the rare instances lately where we've watched the movie and then we'll tuck it out to actually go and do the podcast straight after.
Tuck it out.
So some of our memory might be a little off, but we've got some pretty good notes here. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. I want to drop in one of my facts.
Do it.
Before we even start talking about the movie.
Yeah.
And what did I have here? Ooh. During this movie's history,
Yeah.
it's had 15 adaptations for screen.
Nice.
15.
Yeah, I think it was your wife actually that mentioned that it got remade only a few years ago.
Yeah.
Had that Arnie Hammer guy in it and
2020, I
I think
think.
Lily James or something, a few other big actors.
Yeah. And also, that excludes stage productions as well. So it's been remade a fair few times.
Because it was based on a novel, this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. It was a fact, wasn't a question.
Thank you. just like my brain is cooked this week. So
Oh, I know. Me too. It's been a hard week for both of us.
you're unemployed.
Okay.
um,
Do you remember how the movie
no,
starts?
I'm trying to read my handwriting. I've got Alex needs to describe. It opens with. Oh, opens with waffle?
Okay.
Like waffling on?
Barrett's struggling to read his notes for those that aren't watching the
Do you remember
podcast
that?
and listening only.
There was a fair bit of waffling apparently at the start of the movie.
Waffling.
And
Why
you were
does
going to
that ring a
describe
bell?
it. This is a disaster.
I don't remember the waffling. Well, it clearly wasn't important. Carry forth. So the movie starts.
Oh, I remember what the waffling was.
Go on.
So, the main person, Mrs. What's her name?
De Winter.
Mrs. DeWin.
Wait. When you say main person, that's very vague, Barrett.
Okay.
So I'm going to take over here.
No. Let me get this. Let me get this. So it opens with her dreaming of her life at the house of Mandalay.
Mandalay.
Yeah. All right. So it's her dreaming about her time and that house.
Barrett, nobody knows who her is.
She doesn't have a name.
Hang on. All right. We're going to start this again, Barrett. Okay. That start, whatever that person was remembering, irrelevant. Very
Waffling.
confusing unless
It was
you're watching
waffling.
it. So, main actors in this movie, fella named Maxim, and he's played by
Don't know.
Laurence Olivier.
Yes.
Olivier, or something like that. Pretty famous actor. And then you've got Mrs. De Winter, who doesn't actually have a first name that's mentioned in the movie. And there was a reason for that. I can't remember why.
Brooke did.
Brooke had the
fact, and I don't know.
something there. But anyway, she is the
This is
love
a
interest, and that
fucking
comes out very
disaster.
early in the movie. Yeah, so I'm taking over. Those are the two main people, right, that are worth mentioning.
Yes.
There's a few others, and we'll get to them. But Maxim, main dude, and then Mrs. De Winter, main girl.
Who becomes Maxim's
We'll get to that.
wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
So movie starts, and you've got Maxim, and he's at the edge of a cliff, and there's water and rocks below.
Yes.
Pretty high up. And he's looking down, and you pick up very quickly that he's looking as if he's going to kill himself.
Yes. Yep.
We don't know why. We don't know who this guy is. We just know it's the main guy because he's on the cover, and it's Laurence Olivier, and a lot of people know him. He's a famous actor. So he's there, and he's kind of teetering over to hop over, and then the main woman walks in, and she's just on a walk nearby for whatever reason. Again, it's not explained, and that's Mrs. De Winter. Becomes Mrs. De Winter. Anyway,
Yes.
I don't know what her original name was. She comes in and stops him from jumping off because she kind of connects the dots that he looks like he's trying to commit suicide.
Correct.
He kind of shrugs it off no, I wasn't, silly, blah, blah, blah. And, they kind of then go their separate ways back to this hotel that they're actually both staying at,
Yes.
right? So he's staying there just to stay there, whether he was there for fun or leisure. It didn't seem like it was for business, but he's in the hotel, right? Big fancy hotel. You pick up very quickly that he's well off, and he's coming into the kind of main foyer area of the hotel, and then we see sitting on a couch is this larger, older lady who's drinking coffee and talking nonstop.
Yes.
And the person with her is that girl that stopped him from jumping off, the young, pretty girl, right?
Yes.
Comes
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Winter.
yeah. Yep.
And you piece together pretty quickly that the young girl was working for this older lady who's, again, she's like a rich lady staying at the hotel too.
Yep.
And the only reason the young girl's staying at the hotel is because she's there to be the assistant of this other woman, right?
Yeah.
The woman knows who Maxim is, Maxim De Winter,
Yes,
the main
yeah,
guy.
yep.
Calls him over, wants to have a coffee with him. He kind of wants to just walk off, but sees that she's there with him and entertains talking to the older lady because he clearly wants to spend a bit more time with the younger girl.
Yes.
Sits down there, does a bit of talking. Anyway, I can't remember the full conversation, but he then buggers off pretty quickly.
Yep.
And then at that point, the older lady explains to the younger woman, because she's just rambling and she's a big gossip, you can tell she just can't stop, right? And she says some pretty key plot facts. So she mentions that Maxim De Winter, again, rich guy, has some big estate outside of here. He's lovely, great dude. But his wife also died a year ago.
Yes, yeah.
Didn't say how at the time, but that she died.
Poor thing. I suppose he just can't get over his wife's death. They say he simply adored her.
And that has been a mess ever since, basically. Just a complete, utter mess.
Yep.
Remember what happens next?
Man, I'm struggling to read through my notes. So we found out his wife is dead.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm not skipping too much here. Long story short, he asked her out.
Yep. So they start seeing each other a bit more in the hotel. He's clearly courting her. She's clearly interested in him. So she starts like dodging her responsibilities as being the assistant for that older lady because I think she gets sick.
Yep.
So she's kind of just bedridden anyway. So she doesn't really have much to do. So she then makes up excuses to go and spend time with Maxim, whether it's tennis or other bullshit, so that they can spend time together.
Yes, yeah. This part of my page is an absolute disaster of like arrows.
Looks like a bunch of squiggles.
There's squiggles everywhere. There's
Looks like lemmings
shorthand
off the page.
Please don't murder me if I get this all in the wrong order. But there's some funny shit that happens during this time. So
You are my friend of the bosom, good sir.
thank you, Alex. I love how you just weaved that in there.
Weaved seamlessly.
Yes. So the courting's been going on. They're leaving.
Well, yeah, but you're jumping ahead a little bit. I'd like to mention, not a fun fact, not really plot driven, but the way that Maxim kind of negs her through this process is pretty impressive. Like, he is a fuckboy. Maybe the first in cinema. I don't know. Actually, no, because then we started talking about, I just wanted to get out of the way. Then, and drain it for all it's worth. Then we started talking about our other main man.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Who's the other actor that we've been loving?
Oh, Clark Gable.
Clark Gable.
We started having a...
Then we started talking about who's more of a fuckboy, who's better at negging.
Oh,
Is it
yeah. No.
Laurence Olivier or Clark Gable? Because they are weapons and they are not hiding it.
Yeah.
So we then asked your wife who is the better looking of the two, and she picked Lawrence.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
I think Lawrence was better at negging.
I would like to put this out to the audience. Who is better looking, Clark Gable or Laurence Olivier? And who is better at being a negger? I think it's Lawrence.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Let me read through some of my notes and we'll see how we go. So it's all sort of dancing around a little bit. So I've already, like, he's a fuckboy. I've got that written here.
So did I. Yeah.
Her boss is probably not really happy that she's been spending time with this guy. But so they're courting. She's leaving. She's desperate to see him before she goes.
So either say goodbye.
So they're in France. Is it where?
Yeah, I think they're in Monaco or something.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah.
They were going to head home.
Yeah.
So she was never going to see him again.
Yeah.
So she's like desperately running around the hotel,
trying to phone call
him,
and
and then she goes, "What room's he in?" And then goes up to his room, and he's in the bath, and I'm thinking, "Goodness, like what's going to happen?" She's going to walk in, but no, he comes out with a towel, and it's all quite, it's all quite modest. And he offers her an ultimatum, essentially.
Well,
either you can leave or you can marry me. Essentially. Yeah. And then she's confused by the situation, which he replies to her,
yes,
"I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool."
You mean you want a secretary or something?
I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool.
Yeah, that's the quote I was looking for. Brilliant. So he's still kind of like getting dressed and he's still kind of in the bathroom. She's in a separate room and they're kind of talking. She's getting confused and he's just basically said, "I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool."
Yeah, and then her boss comes looking for her, finds her, not happy, tells her, "You won't make a good lady."
Yeah, she's real pissed. Obviously, like, she was really interested in Maxim as well. Not that she had a chance or anything like that, but she's also just like a bitter old woman. So just wanted to shred this young girl. And I get it from her perspective too, right? This young girl is, no skills, no nothing, just kind of was her little assistant and then just was in the right place at the right time. And now she's marrying this rich, well-to-do guy.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't look good from her perspective, right?
Yeah. There is, I have one other word here that I want you to run away with.
Yeah.
But I've just got it here in an asterisk, palm tree.
Best sentence of this movie in terms of shock factor. So they're talking and you know, it's all kind of like rush and there's not like a huge amount of romance going on because it's, you know, they're just suddenly getting married, these people that just met. And there was a moment where, what was he doing just before that? I can't remember that.
I don't remember what the lead up to this moment
I don't know what
was.
the lead up was, but they were both a bit frustrated and, you know, things are being very like procedural rather than romantic. And he goes, yes, I shouldn't be doing this. I'd rather be making violent love to you behind a palm tree. Just super casually, and she just was like nothing. And I was like, what did he say? We had to double take, and that's what he said.
Yeah. So essentially, they're married. They get the shotgun marriage with, I don't know. They
go to this office to get the paperwork, like super shotgun.
But they leave the room so quickly they don't get the paperwork, and then the guy throws it to them out of the second story.
Yeah.
Oh, anyways. They're married. They head back to Mandolin. I think it's
Mandalay.
But it's got an IN on there. Vida's written it with an IN the whole time.
I'm pretty sure it's Mandalay. I could be wrong, but I wrote it down as Mandalay, and I put quote marks on it to get it right.
Okay. Mandalay.
I've been wrong before, though.
100%. Let's just stick with what you've said.
Okay.
We're not having a 30-minute session of how to say Alex,
We know how to say Alex and spell Alex.
All right.
Keep going.
So they arrive at Mandalay. The staff all come to greet them. The staff all come together. There's a lot of staff that make it.
Mandolin like an instrument or something? Is that why you keep saying it? Mandolin. Mandolin is something else.
Mandalay.
No, mandolin. What you kept saying is something else. It's Mandalay.
You're thinking of Mandarin?
Mandolin.
No. Pause. Find out we've got to say this word a fair few more times.
I was right. I was
Mandalay.
fucking right. Mandolin is an instrument. It's like a little lute thing. That's why you keep saying mandolin. It's definitely Mandalay.
Mandalay. All right. But I've got mandolin written
Can you just pay note that I was right?
I've got that
How do I even know this instrument?
I've got that word with that spelling because it's from like Zelda or something.
I don't know.
I've got that spelling and that word written all the way through, so Mandalay. I'm going to get it wrong. All right, so the staff will come out to greet them, and then we're introduced to a character called Mrs. Damper.
Danver, not Damper.
I said Damper.
Oh, I thought you said Damper.
Oh my goodness. Mrs. Damper. All right, she's introduced, and she is cold. Ice cold.
This is Mrs. Danvers.
How do you do?
How do you do? I have everything in readiness for you.
That's very good of you. I didn't expect anything.
She's very cold, very professional, just not a pleasant person.
Yeah, and almost immediately brings up his ex-wife.
Yeah, but she's very, very creative. Like she's not. She borders that line of being insulting or rude, but without going over it. So it's never super obvious. And Mrs. De Winter just thinks that she's nice to her when she's actually not. Like that kind of fine line.
Oh yeah, there's some horrible things she does later on in the movie.
Yeah, so they move into this estate. This Mandalay estate is massive, right? The property's huge, massive mansion thing. You meet all the staff. It's very clear that this Miss Danver is going to be, a key person.
Yeah.
Clearly isn't too fond of this news. All of a sudden, Mr. Winter, and there's definitely early on you can see that she's still very loyal to the original Mr. Winter that died. And you picked up even throughout this process, you could definitely see that is still what appears to be heartbroken over the original Mrs. De Winter. There's an entire wing of the house that she would stay in.
Yes.
That was still perfectly preserved the way Mrs. De Winter originally wanted it.
Yeah.
That then no one really went in anymore.
Can we refer to her as Rebecca?
So the Okay, yes, Rebecca.
Yes, because otherwise it's going
Sorry,
to
you're
get
right.
very confusing
So
when you say
Rebecca's the
Mrs.
original-
DeVinter and
yes.
original Mrs.
Rebecca's the original wife that died, and you're right, like that wing's preserved for her.
Yes.
And so you find that Mrs. De Winter now is trying to fit into this new world. She's completely out of her element. Like, this is not her environment. And she's like breaking shit and hiding it because she feels really uncomfortable. She feels uncomfortable with the help helping her.
Yeah.
And she eventually, but actually before that though, so there's also a pretty impromptu catch up that Maxim set up. His sister and her husband's coming to visit, and they're having a lunch. Remember that part? That was early on. So the sister of Maxim comes over with her husband, and this is in the early stages, she's trying to set a foundation for herself in this property, and she's coming downstairs to meet them and overhears them talking, and they're again saying pretty awful things about her. So she knows that nobody really likes her.
Yeah.
And then they kind of get through that. That doesn't really go anywhere more than that, just to really set the scene that she's not feeling comfortable.
Yeah. So life for her in the house is not great.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we meet another character, Jack. Is that who you were talking about just then? Is Jack the... sorry.
So the sister and her husband came to visit and have lunch.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this cousin shows up, Jack.
Yeah, Jack and...
Cousin of Rebecca.
Cousin of Rebecca,
Yeah, he's like outside the window, and for whatever reason, they meet and catch up.
Weird.
Yeah, it's weird. He looks like a real kind of, sleuthy, dirty character, but he meets they have a quick conversation, and that's pretty much the end of it.
He does say an important sentence in that conversation. He says, "You don't sail, do you?"
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so
I think we've found out by this point.
I think along this journey, or very near around this, we find out that Rebecca died a year ago in a freak yachting accident.
Yes, and then he's asked the new Mrs. De Winters if you sail.
Yeah.
She gets the cold shoulder from the dog, which is...
Originally, yeah. And also around this time, we can't forget that she does wander outside towards the water and finds that little cottage.
Oh, no. I need to stop you before we get to that.
Okay.
That's coming up. But I also want to get a couple other things out of the way that sort of happened then. We met a character named Fritz. Don't remember who Fritz is, but I'm sure it's going to come back around because it's written in my notes. And
it really won't.
Mrs. Danver, the help,
Yeah.
all right, says a sentence to her. "I can see by the way you dress, you don't care."
I don't remember that.
All right, so really just like the new Mrs. De Winters is having a horrible time in this house. Okay? Just before that cottage thing you were talking about, I want to roll in another fact I had here. So this entire movie with Alfred Hitchcock shooting, was shot in something called shot with something called in-camera editing.
What's that?
Okay, so it means the scenes are filmed in a very precise order and with only one take. So when the film is developed, it will already be edited for you because it's all already. So if he wants to have it start with a scene like this and then cut to this scene and cut back, he'll film them in that order so you don't have to cut the film up and splice it later.
Yeah, right.
He kind of stopped the editors from being able to change the movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
I thought that was pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
She's having a horrible time in the house. To try and cheer her up, she organises to go for a walk.
Yep.
All right, they're going for a walk around the estate with her husband, Maxim.
And the doggo,
And the doggo, yeah.
who was still alive.
Yes, all right. They end up going to a creepy beach house or beach shack.
Cottage.
Cottage, yep.
It's a beach cottage.
Beach cottage, yeah.
Yep. Because the dog is skulking around the cottage, and she's trying to get the dog back, who isn't obeying.
Yeah, Maxim doesn't want to go down there either.
No, he really doesn't like that cottage, and we don't know why yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, she goes down to the cottage to retrieve the dog, and then this real creepy dude opens the door.
Yeah.
And instead of being like, creep factor, this guy's going to murder me, just walks straight into the fucking cottage.
Yeah.
Anyway, walks to the cottage, gets the dog, realizes it's full of stuff. We find out, we may as well mention it now, that all that stuff is Rebecca's stuff. It's
Yes.
all been shoved into this cottage, right? She's still got other stuff as well, but
Yes, yeah.
it seemed like this cottage was another place that Rebecca would hang out in,
Yeah.
and all that stuff's still hers in there. And it also adds up then why, well, at least in part, we'll get to that,
Yeah.
why Maxim didn't want to go to the cottage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that guy is just some creepy dude that works around there who stays in that cottage.
Essentially, yeah.
Never really gets more in depth than that. So anyway, she comes out of it, and she's back into the main, not building, estate,
House,
main
yeah.
house. She's back in there, and she's looking out one of the windows, and she sees someone in the West Wing. The West Wing's the one where it's been preserved, that basically Rebecca was, keeping to herself.
Yeah.
And no one's supposed to be in there. So she sees someone in the window and thinks, that's odd. I'm thinking, is this turning into a horror movie? Anyway, so goes over there, and it's Miss Danvers, right? So she's in there cleaning and keeping everything exactly the way that Rebecca had it. And that's where Mr. Winter now, she's going through and kind of seeing a bit more about who Rebecca was. And
Yes.
Miss Danvers is now getting super creepy.
Oh, yes.
Super creepy.
I've written down some
on.
bits. So she's showing around the room. She opens the window, like lets all the light in. It's quite a nice room, but then takes her into the wardrobe and goes, this is where her underwear is kept, and then starts opening drawers, showing her where her underwear is.
See anything so like silky? You can see your hand through it. I'm like,
Oh, yeah. She's like, have you ever
going
seen
on here?
anything so delicate?
Yeah.
And then she's like going on about how Rebecca used to undress and she used to help her undress. I actually did a little bit more research into this, and it's actually been identified in a documentary that came out like 1996 that like they've also almost called Mrs. Danver out as lesbian. Which would make sense.
look, the way that she was like going through the underwear, and it was the nightie. Remember the nightgown? It was like silky and see through and like sexy. She was like getting all about it and touching it. I thought the same thing. I thought was Miss Danvers in love with with Rebecca, and something weird happened there. That's what I'm thinking at this stage.
Yeah.
So anyway, like makes Mr. Winter really uncomfortable at this stage.
Yeah, and she kind of snaps at this point, and she's had enough. Like, she's been, like, most of the staff have not been very nice to her. They're talking behind her back. She's getting the cold shoulder from everyone, and she just says, you know what? Just have this room emptied. Like, she
cracks it, says, I'm here now. I'm the new Mr. Winter.
Yes.
Get rid of Rebecca's stuff.
Yes.
I was like,
yeah.
boss bitch move.
And who is not happy about this?
Oh, Miss Danvers.
Miss Danvers, right? So
you don't really see Maxim throughout all this. Like he's actually, while she's kind of navigating this new world in the house, he's off just doing Maxim stuff. You don't really see him too much.
Yeah. So Mrs. Danvers, she's not happy about this. In Mrs. De Winters, the new Mrs. De Winters, she's in boss bitch mode. She's going to own this. She's decided, we're getting rid of all Rebecca's shit. We're having a party.
We're having a party.
Yeah.
She's going to announce herself, basically.
Yes, and we're going to have a dress-up party.
Yes, we are.
Right? And she says to Maxim, I'm going to make my costume. You're not going to see what it is. It's going to be fantastic. And she's got some costume in her head. But not the last minute, but sometime during her party planning, Mrs. Danvers has shown her or taken her to a picture in a hallway and says, oh, this is Maximum's favorite picture.
Yeah.
I think you should dress up as this person.
It's some woman in a dress, and she explains it to be some sort of relative of Maxim's or some ancestor or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's his favorite painting. You should dress up as that.
Yes.
And so she gets like identical to that, right?
Identical.
The dress is already there.
Yeah.
Again, probably should have set some alarm bells off for
Yes.
Mr. Winter, but it didn't. And then walks downstairs to surprise. So all the guests haven't arrived yet, but you've got Maxim downstairs with the sister, with his sister and the partner, and their backs are all turned. And she gets all the way down the stairs behind them when she finally basically nudges him on the shoulder to say, "Hey, look at me."
Yes, and she's excited.
Yeah, and Maxim not happy.
Not happy. No, he cracks it straight away. He tells her to get upstairs, get
Take that
changed.
off.
I can't
What are
believe
you doing?
Yeah.
Like loses it.
Yeah.
So at this point, we've quickly realised that Miss Danvers has tricked Mr. Winter into putting on Rebecca's dress.
Yes.
She was dressed up to look identical to Rebecca because that's the person that was in the portrait.
Yes. And so she goes straight to Mrs. Danver, calls her out on it. Mrs. Danver essentially says, I sort of phrase this, you will never compare to her. Tells her to leave and encourages her to commit suicide.
Yeah, there's this open window, and while she's like, really distressed and upset, Miss Danvers is trying to get her to kill herself. Real dark. And definitely, I think, it's not ever fully resolved in the movie, but Miss Danvers clearly in love with Rebecca. Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. Right? And tries to get her to kill herself, but doesn't.
Yes.
And what interrupts that scene and the whole party was something happening out by the coast.
Yeah, there was a shipwreck.
It was a shipwreck.
An untimely shipwreck.
Yes.
The first of
discovery of a shipwreck.
Oh, no. So, shipwreck.
Oh, yes. Sorry, you're right. You're right.
Shipwreck resulting in divers going to dive under the water to look at how bad the damage was to the ship that's wrecked on these rocks. Whilst they're diving, what do they come across? The sailboat that Rebecca's in. Well,
they find the sailboat, and they also find a body in it.
A body in it. Yeah. So I guess this starts to come out, and Maximum is now telling.
Well, they find themselves in the cottage. Remember the cottage by the water, filled with Rebecca's stuff. It's at this point just Maxim and Mr. Winter, and Revelation Central.
Mrs. De Winter.
Mrs. De Winter, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Revelation Central. So Maxim spills the beans, and we're going to compress a big part of the plot into this. And if you're happy with it, I'll take it away.
Don't miss anything. I've got
I'll
a whole
try.
paragraph written for this.
Do you want to have a crack at it?
Yeah.
Go for it, Barry.
Yeah. And you feel free if I'm going astray.
Sounds good.
Just say stop and jump in. So Maximum starts off by saying Rebecca has won. All right.
It's just Maxim, not Maximum. Maxim.
Yeah. All right. Maximum says, that's going to be loud. I'm sorry. I'll fix that bit. Maxim says Rebecca has won. Rebecca is essentially in the boat, right? He's starting to come clean. He says he killed Rebecca.
Yep.
Right?
So she's really shocked, Mrs. De Winter at this point, but then Maxim explains.
Yeah. So Mrs. De Winters is sort of taken back by this. She's sort of calling him out to a degree. I've got this written on. Maybe I don't have this quite in the right order, but he's saying he's always compared her to Rebecca. He's asking if he hates her. Yeah, that sort of stuff. It's not playing out so well. He then starts to tell the story of how she came to be, in his eyes, murdered by him. Mm-hmm. Yep. We don't have all of the information at this point, I don't think.
We have a fair bit. Keep going.
Oh, I feel like you give me the eyes like you want to jump in. He, I guess, found out that Rebecca had been seeing someone else, and not just someone else, others.
It was more than that, because I actually think that part was really it was not really called out specifically, right? But it was real. So he was more saying that she was a nightmare. That once they got married, she kind of changed a lot, and she was not the person that he thought she was.
Yeah, and she said their marriage would be basically an image that was portrayed only.
Exactly. She made it real clear to him that I'm going to be the world's perfect wife by perception only.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And as he started rambling on about the story, a few things came out that were really important. He knew the body that washed up on shore wasn't hers.
We
right?
haven't really mentioned that. So
he doesn't here. He knew.
Oh, we haven't mentioned on here.
So, so the original body was found, right, by Maxim a year ago when she died, which is why they were so surprised to find a body in the shipwreck inside the cabin.
So imagine sailboat capsizes, body comes out of sailboat, goes down the coast somewhere, washes up. Maxim identified that as Rebecca. She's now buried in a grave.
Exactly. And he knew that it wasn't Rebecca. It was just some other schmuck that washed up on the water, on the shore for some reason around the same time. Odd, but anyway.
Yep.
And he knew because he knew what had actually happened to her. And he goes on to say that the whole marriage was a sham, that he was incredibly unhappy. She was a bit of a fuck girl. She definitely was sleeping around with other people.
Yeah.
And again, had you said, you're never going to be able to get rid of me because everyone's just going to see me as the perfect wife and you're going to be trapped, essentially.
Yeah.
So he was in a mess, right?
Yeah.
And then they got to a big argument one night inside the cottage.
Yes. Yeah.
He's telling the story of what happened to her, right?
Yeah.
So the argument was about this, the nature of their relationship being a sham and all the rest of it. And she actually then said to him that, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Right? And basically alluded to it not being his.
Yes, but she was going to keep it.
And say that it's yours and there's nothing you can do about it.
And you're going to raise this son like it's your own.
Yeah. And so he hits her. He said that he hit her. And then she kind of recovered from the hit and just laughed and smiled at him as if it was what she wanted. And she's clearly messed up. So this perception the whole movie we have is that Rebecca is this angelic, perfect wife who, unfortunately died and all the rest of it. Turns out she's a fucking bitch.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And she's egging him on, and he hits her, which he regrets, and we think, okay, is this now when he kills her? And he says that no, what happened was she recovered again, was trying to egg him on for more, and she was laughing at him, and she went to push him or something.
Yes, I think went to push him.
Went to push him.
He
and
stepped
fell
out
through.
of the way.
He stepped out of the way, and she fell over.
Yeah.
And smacked her head on some shipping gear, like some netting or an anchor or something that was in storage.
Yeah.
And she died from that.
Yeah, hit her head and died.
So
and
he's like saying, "Oh, it was my fault," but it clearly was an accident.
the reason he knew she died in that moment is she was still smiling.
Yeah.
He's like, if she's hit her head that hard, why is she still smiling? Oh, turns out she's dead. I summarized that with one sentence. She was fucking her cousin and got pregnant.
Well, we didn't say that, but we better say it now. So, clear as day, at least one of the people that she was sleeping with was her cousin, this Jack guy that appeared before.
Yeah.
And our understanding at the time was that she was pregnant with his baby.
Yes. I do also want to point out a couple of things at this point. I want to weave in one of my facts, which I'll do in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to point out that this movie was like 2 hours and 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And we are 1 hour 30, 1 hour 40 in by this point.
Such a good point to make. So I think it was we were like an hour and a half in. It was about, maybe just slightly more. You're right. There's only about 20 minutes left of the movie, 25 minutes left of the movie. And up until this point, so I'm starting to lose any interest in this movie while she's wandering around the house and feeling bad about herself. I'm like, I couldn't really care, love. And I'm thinking, this movie is a bit boring. It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
And then it went from absolutely nothing to absolutely everything in moments. And I'm like, there's 20, 25 minutes left of this movie. What's going to happen next?
I even said at probably with 30 minutes left, the movie's done. Like, it's just been a slow drama.
I was waiting for some conflict. Is it going to be between her and Miss Danvers, maybe? I thought maybe something there.
This is what, like, the entire first hour and a half is just setting up tiny little plot points to all tie to the most epic plot twists. Twist upon twist upon twist. It was a curly whirly.
It was a twister.
It was a curly whirly by the end of it.
So there's something else I wanted to mention as well as... so when Rebecca had come out to Maxim about her true intentions and who she really was, that was only 4 days into the marriage. I wrote that down. I thought, well, she didn't last too long. And also, another Maxim one-liner, he said something around that he hated Rebecca, and obviously we can understand now why. But he said that originally that he thought she had everything. She had brains, beauty, and breeding. I was like, geez, for 3 Bs from the 30s.
Yes.
Well, yeah, 40s and whatever.
40s, yeah.
Dark. Anyway.
I want to put my fact in here. The police are now starting to make inquiries because they've found a body in the boat, and they need to work out who the body is. It's not just going to fly under the radar. I do want to make a point. I don't know. This is probably a little bit later in the film that this happens, but just because the police have been brought up, I want to bring it in. Did you know that Hitchcock cameos in his own movies?
Really?
Yeah. So
who was he in this?
40 out of 53 surviving Hitchcock movies, he's in.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a scene a little bit later on where the police are doing some investigating and he just walks by in the background. He's got like a hat on and his collar's popped and he's wearing like a long trench coat. Just walks straight past.
Nice.
No speaking, no nothing. He's just...
You know who did that a lot too? Stephen King. He did that in a lot of his horror movies. He would always make some kind of appearance.
I mean, it makes sense. If you're going to be a famous producer, you want to be
Director.
at least... Yeah, okay, famous director. You want to be in the picture to be remembered, right?
Well, sure, why not?
So the story checks out. The police are making inquiries. Alfred Hitchcock makes an appearance at some point, but he's asked to attend the morgue. All right, to identify the body. He's then told there'll be another inquest. It has to be because they can't just sweep this under the blanket. They need to work out who the body is.
Yep.
And they will be completing inspections on the boat.
Yep.
As well. So he's already told the new Mrs. De Winters by this point of everything that happened. That she died. He put her on the boat.
Yep.
He took her out to sea.
Yeah.
He took the bungs out of the boat. He drilled holes in the boat, sank
Such a
the
good
boat.
point because he carried the dead body, put it on the boat, and then
Yep.
sunk it basically,
Yep.
right, to cover it all up. Mr. Winter at this point, she's fully like with Maxim. I understand what's happened. I'm with you. Just fully believes it.
Yep.
And it's real, but anyway, fully believes it. And they're now aligned, and she's pressing him to say, "Look, don't say anything because there's no way anyone else is going to believe you.
Yep.
We're going to see this out, right?"
Yes.
And so everyone else is like, "Oh, we're just doing these checks, just a matter of process and procedure," because they fully believe Maxim's story as well.
Yes, yeah. He has nothing to do with it. So the inquest kicks off. Evidence come out that the boat has sunk and it's looking like suicide.
Yes, and so they're saying suicide, and that doesn't add up for a lot of people either. Like, why would she be suicidal, right?
Yeah,
and
I do want to weave in here as well. The crazy man from what did you call it? The cottage.
Yeah.
The crazy man from the cottage from earlier on in the movie. He's standing there and he's just swearing black and blue. I hasn't seen nothing.
Come. Did you see Mrs. De Winter get into her boat that last night?
I don't know nothing.
Yeah, he's all messed up, and
Yeah.
Probably actually knows something actually, but doesn't want to say anything because he doesn't want to get himself or anyone else in trouble. And again, he kind of just goes away in the shadows, and that's the end of him.
Yeah.
And in this inquest also calls up Maxim to ask him some questions, because if the story is now that she committed suicide, he's asking, Maxim now questions in front of everyone. Well, was she upset? Was your marriage, was there problems in your marriage?
Yeah.
And he's real edgy, right? He's not a good liar.
No,
And
definitely
he's
not.
buckling under the pressure, and he's just about to break, and then Mrs. De Winter fakes passing out to get out of the problem, right?
Yeah.
Between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy? Were relations between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy? I won't stand this any longer, and you might as well know now.
And it works a treat. And they're then sitting into the carriage to kind of like have some lunch and strategize.
Yes.
And then Jack comes back.
Jack gets in the garage, yeah. And he basically asks Maxim for a bribe.
Yeah. He is holding them ransom now, basically. He's trying to blackmail them because he knows he has like a letter from, he says that he's got a letter from Rebecca the day before, whatever, before she died, which really highlights that she's not suicidal. I don't think we know the full details of the letter, but makes it clear that, she's not suicidal, and it's going to cause more inquest and investigation to occur and, buy me out, basically. So, they're dealing with that situation too.
So there's a bribe going down. Maxim is kind of playing along with it. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know he's playing along. We think he's just giving in at this point. He arranged to take this guy into like this back room of this restaurant, like a private room. They're going to do the deal there. And as they walk in, who comes in with them? The police.
Actually, he offered to withhold a vital piece of evidence from the inquest if I made it worth his while.
I only want to see justice done, Colonel.
So
the fellow leading this investigation, this real old dude, who's got a personal relationship with Maxim.
Yes.
But again, seems like a pretty good operator.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's all about it.
Yeah. So Maxim calls him out in front of the police and says that he's basically trying to rip him off. He's making up all these lies. The police say, well, we have to listen to all of the evidence. We're going to have to investigate these lies.
Exactly.
And then Jack just kicks off
Yep.
with his evidence, and he's laying all this evidence out. He's going
She's
on
not
and
suicidal.
on.
His
Yeah.
letter, and drops a big bombshell that Rebecca was pregnant.
Yes.
and now that gives motive to the story of why would Maxim kill her? Well, she was pregnant and maybe pregnant with someone else, or just pregnant, right?
Yeah, and he says that she's been visiting this doctor in
Some random place.
that's, I think it was maybe France or wherever the movie started. That's where my brain went that we were going. Basically, they're like, we're going to go see this doctor and he's going to prove my story correct.
And there's another important part here where, there's a lot of people involved in all these conversations, and they don't know this other doctor that she saw, but Miss Danvers knows, because Miss Danvers knows everything about Rebecca, again, clearly because she's in love with her. That's a strong theory. And eventually spills the beans because, again, she's now thinking, well, if someone killed Rebecca, who she probably had feelings for, I want this to come out.
Correct.
So spills the beans about where she was going to this doctor.
Yep.
So then their plan is, we're going to go see this doctor and confirm whether she was pregnant. And if she was, well, there's motive. We need to do a more thorough investigation. And something else that came out that we didn't mention in the original inquest that created a lot more controversy, and this guy that's investigating to really listen to other people, including Jack, was the fact that the person that inspected the boat said that, hey, this boat was sunk by someone, right?
Yes, yeah.
Here's X, Y, and Z. Here's the evidence. Someone intentionally sunk this boat, which again, tied in with the suicide thing, but it also just seemed real fishy because they also said that she had a blow to the head, and it's like, well, what came first, right?
Yeah.
And so they go to this person's practice, this doctor.
Dr. Baker.
So it's the main detective investigator, Maxim, Jack.
Yep.
Is there anyone else?
No, I think it's them. They drive there.
With the doctor, yeah.
Yeah, so they drive. They're two different cars. They drive all the way to this other place. It's hours away. Maxim says he's going to drive through the night to Mrs. De Winter's, so she's not too stressed by his absence.
Yep.
They arrive at the doctor's, and they start to probe, and they can't find a booking for Rebecca.
I'm awfully sorry. I'm afraid I can't help you. I should have remembered the name De Winter. I've never attended Mrs. De Winter in my life.
All right, they can't find any booking for Rebecca.
Yep.
And he's like, 12th of October.
Yep.
That's when she was here. It's got to come out. Like it's got to be in your booking sheet somewhere. So the doctor starts reading off all the names in his booking sheet.
Yep.
And reads off Mrs. Danver.
Yep.
No De Winter. Are you sure? Well, here are all the appointments for that day. Ross, Campbell, Stedall, Perino, Danvers,
Danny?
Yeah.
What the devil? Would you read that name again? Did you say Danvers?
Yep.
Yeah. And
that's how they know, and they explain that that's her, right?
Yes.
And they're going through that, and basically they're pressing the doctor, and the doctor's like, look, I don't want to breach confidentiality. They must have had something like that even back then. And the investigator was like, you got to tell us anything.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell us, yeah.
And so everyone, like Jack and Maxim, Maxim's sweating bullets. Jack's like, I got him. He's going to tell him that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
She was not pregnant.
No.
She was not pregnant. She had cancer.
I knew she was not the type to accept a lie. She'd asked for the truth. I let her have it. She thanked me. I never saw her again, so I assumed that...
What was wrong with her?
Cancer.
Yeah.
She had cancer and made up the story.
Yes.
And then another revelation came out where, the doctor thought, because they asked the doctor, did she seem suicidal? And it's like, well, yes, I would say she was suicidal, because when I said that you're not pregnant, you have cancer and you don't have long left, that Rebecca had said something along the lines of, oh, doctor, not that long. I think the doctor gave her a time frame, and Rebecca said it won't be that long.
Yeah, I want to weave a fact in there. So I got some facts from the novel, just to highlight a few things. So in the book, the doctor was going to be performing an abortion, and they didn't want that in the film, so they changed it.
So she was pregnant in the book.
I didn't read that far into it, but he was an abortion specialist in the...
Barrett, you can't drop that random novel fact and not actually explain key parts of the story from the book.
Yeah, well, the terminology and
maybe
thoughts of
okay,
abortion were
no,
removed.
I understand what happened. So Rebecca was fully convinced she was pregnant. So she probably ended up with that doctor thinking, I'm going to have to do that or something like that.
Yes, yeah.
Then realizing she wasn't actually pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Because this doctor, even in the movie, explained how she thought she was, but she wasn't.
It's. I'm going to say a fact in a minute, my last fact, and that's going to tie all of that back together. I just had to drop that in at that point. I promise it'll make sense soon. All right, so we found out that the cousin Jack, the father of the child, he's devastated.
Yeah.
All right, but they start to head back to the house.
Well, hang on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hang on. So when we found out that, okay, the doctor's now said, well, there's evidence that she was suicidal based on those comments, something that dawned to both of us is she was suicidal. And when she was egging him and antagonizing him in that cottage, she was trying to get Maxim to kill her.
Yes.
Knowing that she had cancer and she wasn't pregnant and all the rest of it, and
Yep.
she was just so twisted.
Yes.
She was trying to egg him on to kill her. And that's why she was shouting and saying all that stuff to him about who she was sleeping with and that she was pregnant, all this other bullshit. She wanted to die, and she was trying to get him to kill her.
Yes. Yeah.
Messed up.
Yeah. What was the house called again?
Mandalay.
Mandalay. I've got the wrong thing. So
It could be wrong.
they're going back to Mandalay.
Definitely not Mandalay, though.
It's a fair big drive back to that place. Mm-hmm. They're driving through the night, and Maxim stops his car and says, "Surely that can't be the sun coming up."
Yeah, at 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m. And earlier to this scene, we've seen Mrs. Danver walking around the house with a candle. The new Mrs. De Winter's asleep. We're thinking the worst. All right, but this is part of that twist on twist on twist. They work out the house is on fire. They go rushing back.
Yeah.
The house is ablaze.
The whole estate's ablaze.
We think the new Mrs. De Winter's dead. We presume that Mrs. Danvers set the house on fire and run away.
Yeah.
We're partially correct. Mrs. Danvers did set the house on fire, but Mrs. De Winters has come out.
Yeah, everyone else got out, but Miss Danvers is still in the house.
Yeah, she stayed in there. She's
Yeah.
fully lost the marbles.
She's lost her marbles, and she's down with the house.
Yes.
She dies.
Yeah, dies with the house.
Yep.
They say they're not going to live there anymore. And
No, and look, obviously Maxim's now exonerated because evidence that she was suicidal and not pregnant, and they just stay with the rest of the story. They don't share any other facts, and they move on, basically.
all right, but
It's worth mentioning that everything we just talked about for half this podcast and half our notes was a 25-minute segment of the movie.
yeah,
It went from 0 to 100, and that all happened so quickly.
yeah, definitely worth watching. So there's one thing I want to bring up with you, all right? And I did say that my fact would elude a few things. So in the book, Maxim shoots Rebecca.
Really?
Yeah.
Like kills her?
Yes.
Oh.
So
And covers it up.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
They
Kind of like what he did in the movie, I guess, but didn't shoot her.
Yeah. So they submitted the book/script to our good old friends at the Hays Code. And they said murder on TV. Or, sorry, not TV, in theatre. Abortion in cinema.
Cinema? What's a cinema?
Cinema. Abortion in cinema. No way. Not happening.
Yeah, right. You know what? Like, again, maybe the novel, those elements were different, but the way that it ended up playing out in the movie, so glad. Like, the plot.
Fantastic.
Right. And again, like, it was a bit of a snore fest in the middle of that movie, and then it just changed so rapidly.
Goodness, it was slow for the first hour and a half.
It doubled my rating in a 25-minute period. It was insane.
Yeah. We made it through. We made it through the plot.
That's the movie. That's Rebecca.
Yes.
Crazy turns.
Would you tell people to watch it?
100%.
Yeah. Me too. And if you asked me that 1 hour and 30 minutes in,
Absolutely not.
absolutely not.
I grabbed my phone. I was starting to dick around,
Yeah.
get some facts, and prepare for the podcast. I'm thinking this is a snores fest. I did think at that time, okay, there's going to be some kind of like bigger run-in with Miss Danvers and Mrs. De Winter, and that's probably how it's going to play out. I was wrong. boy, was I wrong.
It was a masterpiece of a plot twist. It was a perfect setup, perfect execution.
Great.
Watch this film.
It's good.
Yeah,
Barrett, I enjoyed the movie.
I did.
The only other thing I was going to throw in there was that this movie also won a total of 8 Oscars, not just Best Picture.
Yes.
It cleaned up, right?
It did, yes.
Understandably so. Had a sky-high rating, which is why I was so surprised halfway through the halfway through the movie
Yeah.
that the rating was so high.
Yes.
But adds up now for me. But, as always, how many Barretts out of 5?
Look, if the movie had have been more entertaining, I would have given it a 4.
Okay.
But it's getting a 3.5 because the first half of the movie was so bad.
Interesting. Yeah. So I don't think the opening half an hour was bad, like setting the scene, the characters. Like I didn't mind that at all. It was just that middle half an hour that kind of went on.
I'm feeling it was the middle hour. If we're saying half an hour was set up,
maybe middle 45. But 20 minutes of that I was happy with because it was setting it up. But it's probably 20 minutes too long. But the way that it turned and the rest of the plot and the acting, and I really liked it. It really surprised me. And so I think before the plot twist happened and everything else, I'm like, this is a solid 2 for me. But
yes,
it doubled for me. I'm giving it a 4.
Yeah, I'm borderline on that as well. Like 3.5.
It was trying to build up into it. I get what they were doing with it now, so I'm going to give it a 4.
Yes.
So 3.5 and 4.
We're pretty much on like dead on again. And we don't talk about this
but
before.
Very rarely am I higher than you.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
Quality movie.
Should also mention that we went back to black and white for this film.
Well,
so we experienced the joys of color.
But that might have been because the version we have has been colorized. We don't know for sure.
Yeah. All right.
But back to black and white.
Back to black and white. And we're going to carry that black and white theme through to 1953, I think I've checked.
Look, I also add a note in here, I thought the music, especially in this movie, was excellent.
Oh, as soon as we started watching this movie, I made a comment to you that these movies in the last 3 or 4 movies have leveled up dramatically. You can actually sit, watch, and enjoy this film.
The music was excellent. The acting was excellent. The plot twists blew me away. Solid movie.
During the 30s, it was a weird cross between a stage show and a movie. They didn't really know what they're doing. They're overacting. They didn't cut shots properly.
We're starting to feel it turn more into movies now.
Yes, they are. These are movies. If you're going to do anything with your spare time on a weekend, what are we? We're saying
quality movie.
It Happened One Night.
Yeah, recommend. Would watch.
And Rebecca.
Yeah. I have to check. Medium About Me was alright too.
Yeah, but if I was going to say 1 or 2, it'd be those 2 at this point.
Those 2 definitely stand out for me.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Gone with the Wind was just a bit long-winded, pun intended. All right.
Yeah. Awesome, Barrett.
We're wrapping this thing up.
Always a joy. Rebecca, great way to enter the 40s. Hopefully they can keep up the quality.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
What's the outro song?